welcome back to my channel. It's Yoon, and today I'm going to talk about what I read in February and also do something new and talk about some of my February favorites just because I want to talk about them. So in February I read okay, let's think of it this way. I read 4 novels, books, stories if you may as well. Cannot believe I almost forgot this one for February favorite. Okay, so I read four stories, novels, books. 2 of them were e-arcs and one of them was a web novel and another one was an actual novel, surprisingly a classic. Did I read just those 4 books? Okay, and I also DNF'd a book. So let's get into the DNF one first. So the book I DNF'd was The Book of Living Secrets by Madeleine Roux. And off the top of my head, it's about these 2 girls who are into like a really unknown gothic romance called Moira, and one day they like manage to cast a spell and then they get sucked into the book. They get separated because of course they do, but they also realize that something has gone wrong with the original plot, or at the very least they're like, well, I think something did go wrong with the plot, but they're also realizing just how serious the plot was outside of the little bubble the romance was in, and it's like a lot more horrific. It's like monstrous. There's these like underlying horrors that they weren't aware was happening in the story, and so it just sounds like a very interesting concept, because if you guys have been here for a while, you know that I've been really into like the transmigration / isekai storyline, and this was exactly that. Plus I've been getting into the horror genre a lot more too, and it was just combining the 2 things that I'm really into, so of course I was super interested. I ended up DNFing it. So according to the way it's formatted on my books page, danmeis, I'll get to the percentage in a bit, but I think I like DNF'd it chapter 12 or 13. I like the fast pace of it, but it's a 38 chapter book and it just feels like the story went like so out of hand and just not going the way I would have personally preferred it to go. So I did lose interest pretty quickly, and it did seem like the plot was becoming a bit convoluted and it was just becoming too much for what I think the story would have been really good at in a simpler take. So interestingly, it stays on 61% in. I don't really believe that because like I said, I was on chapter 12 out of a 38 chapter book, so something's not adding up here, but that's what it says. But yeah, so that's the book I ended up DNFing. Maybe I might read it just to see what to take from the story, but I won't be picking it up anytime soon. There's also another book, let me just insert this here, that I actually forgot to talk about because I forgot I had DNF'd that one as well. So basically what the book I also DNF'd was Death Warrant by Bryan something, and that one was very similar. Like the reason why I DNF'd it was very similar to why I DNF'd The Book of Living Secrets by Madeleine Roux. It had a really interesting premise and one that I was very intrigued by, but I immediately got the ick. So basically Death Warrant is society has developed to the point where even death has become a commodity and a form of entertainment, and you basically sign up and pay to let yourself be murdered in front of live television, and as a result your family will be very heavily financially compensated. So basically it is kind of a last resort for a lot of people, and our main character she signs up for it. Also, basically after you sign up for it, they do something to make you forget that you did that, to erase your memories, so that you like, it's like completely out of the blue for you. And that sounds really interesting, but I didn't even get to that part yet because I got the ick so fast from the main character, because she was very, very cringe, and I just could not handle reading her point of view and narration, so I had to stop. But yeah. And then the first arc I read in February was called Floral Folklore. What's the full title? Floral Folklore, The Forgotten Tales Behind Nature's Most Enchanting Plants by Allison Davies. This one also, not much of a rating, probably just like a 4. It's a collection of myths focusing on flowers, obviously. So basically it shares the myth or folk tales behind the flower that they chose to put into the book, and they give like the region of the flower, the scientific name, the meaning of the flower for the flower language, floral language, and also the story behind it and how it's like said to have gotten that name. So there was like obviously narcissus, there was the lavender, there was some herbs in there, so like a good variety of flowers. And yeah, there wasn't anything bad about it. There was a lot of like I did kind of expect it, but to still have it happen was a bit disappointing. But there was still a lot of like a good chunk of the flowers and the stories were from like ancient Greece or Europe or the States or etc, etc, and there weren't a lot of like non-Western regions, so that was a bit disappointing but expected. I do think the physical copy will be much prettier, and just the way the arc was formatted will be translated better into a physical form over the digital form I had to read. Yeah, so I think it wasn't bad in any way, because honestly I don't know how much the author like added their personal touch in writing the stories, and how much of it, like, because a big chunk of it is most likely a retelling over like adding a personalized writing style touch to it. So you can't really like, I don't think you can comment much on that. I do think it's a good book that could be a good source to start off with for floral languages or folk tales, especially if you want to even get like inspiration. I think that would be a decent book to get it from. And then the next book I read was, I think I talked about this in a previous video where I was giving like a reading update. That still stands. I think I said I was gonna give a more detailed thingy, but it's been long enough that I forgot most of my detailed notes. But it is Peach Blossom Deck by The Gale Blows By. The Gale Passes By. No, it's The Gale Blows By. And still pretty much a 3.5. I don't know if I said this, but I do kind of regret buying the physical copy. But it's over, it's done with. I regret it because the story unfortunately wasn't as nice, but the paper is very nice. So like I had said, for me, I agree with what a lot of the reviews have said, that the last 1/4 of the novel is really good. It's just really well written, it's emotionally impactful, everything goes down and everything makes sense. But for the 3/4 of the novel before then, it felt very underdeveloped, especially in terms of character and plot development. So for the characters, I just felt like they weren't fleshed out enough for me to care about them. And while I did still react to the characters and their thought process and everything in the last 1/4, I think I would have had a bigger reaction had the characters felt more fleshed out before then. And same for the plot. I feel like there was just so much being dangled in front of us without being foreshadowed or showing more like growing to the reveal that happened in the last part of the book. And so it just felt like we were getting all this information, but for a good chunk of the story I was just wondering why we were given this information and what am I to expect from it. So that was kind of disappointing. And then another thing for the plot. Yeah, so it was just like a really strong sense of confusion because I was like, what the heck is this story going to build up to? When is this going to start making sense? Like, why are all of these things happening? And there was, I think part of the reason for my feeling of both character and plot underdevelopment is because the way the story got translated, and whether it's because it got slightly lost in translation, or if the author originally wrote it like this, is I felt a lot of telling rather than showing. Like, the character would just straight out tell us the sad, like a story that's supposed to create sympathy for the character or their backstory, or it was just the way it kept going back and forth between the present and the past. But while that normally can do a good thing, it was just telling the past to make sense in the present. How do I say it? Like, I think the way I remember it is that like they're in the present, and then so the main character was foretold to have a life of loneliness and basically I think always be near romance but never have it for himself. And throughout the story he constantly brings it up, but the way he brings it up is he's like, oh, in the past I was told I would never find my own love. I'll always be either like helping other people get it or getting in the way, but I'll never have my own one true love or something. And I don't know, the way he would recount the story in the past didn't feel like as if we had gone to the flashback, but as if he was just telling us what happened, which I guess is like what does happen in real life. But when you're reading in a story, it does create a sense of disconnect, and it was really a lot of telling rather than showing. So I think that's also why the story felt a little unsatisfactory and not what I was hoping it would be. And so let me just give a quick summary now that I realize I didn't say anything about it. So our main character, he was originally human. One day, out of sheer coincidence, he ate an immortal elixir pill, and so he ascended to being an immortal. And then years later he has like some close friends, especially one close friend, and then he's assigned, so within the immortal realm there's these two immortals who are being punished for daring to have a romance, a relationship. That whole thing was so weird, by the way. Like, it makes sense as to why exactly they were being punished, but until then I kept thinking they were being punished simply because it was a gay relationship. Like, that's it. Because I was like, why else are they being punished? The only hint they gave was homophobia, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, it was so weird, okay? And it was really really weird also because most of the time the Chinese martial arts fantasies don't really have that in their stories. Like, if there is homophobia, it's like a very, very small minority, and it's either just treated as normal, or if there is any strong reactions, it's because of like who the male interest tends to be. So seeing that it seemed like homophobia was the reason a relationship was being punished. It was so weird. um and so he is assigned to also become an immortal again and get in the way of the relationship. So he's told to seduce one specific character in order to break the relationship, and just so many mishaps keep happening, and it's like quite weird. It's kind of humorous, but it was kind of like, well, what the heck is going on, what, etc, etc. So yeah. And then the next, well, not the next book, but the next book I had read in February is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And also this one, I think this one is really the only one I rated maybe, but this one I just would rate it, I guess, a 4. To be honest, it is a short novel. It's 146 pages, but I was so enchanted by the web novel I read this month, and that was part of the reason, but I was also just not able to get into this story. That when I did read it, I was reading it in a rush because I was going to exchange this. I was going to give this to the friend I was annotating it for on Monday, which was the last day we would be able to see each other for at least a month. So I wanted to give this to her. I couldn't because after the ceremony she like shot off elsewhere and I couldn't find her, and then I had to go. So I just brought it back. But I did read this in a rush, so I couldn't be as analytical as I normally am or read it carefully and closely. So from the way I had read it, I will just say these few pinpoints. The plot itself, the summary is very vague. So basically there's these 3 people living in a house. They're the Blackwoods in the village. They had a tragedy some time ago in which every other family member died because they were poisoned. The older sister, Constance, was accused because, so the way they were poisoned was that the sugar was laced with poison, and she was the only one who didn't eat the sugar. So people were like, oh, because she knows she doesn't eat the sugar, she must have been the one to kill them. She has since been proven innocent, or at the very least not guilty, because there was like no evidence or anything like that. But so now the 3 surviving members are kind of ostracized by the village, and then one day their peaceful life that they've managed to make for themselves gets disrupted with the arrival of an estranged cousin. And it's told through the point of view of the younger sister, Mary Catherine, also known as Mary Cat. Yeah, so this one, it wasn't, I don't think you should expect like the horror vibes from The Haunting of Hill House. I haven't read that one yet, so I can't really compare, but this one is, it's less horror and thrilling and just way more stressful. There is like some, because it's just kind of always there is some interest and some mystery to what really happened to the Blackwood family. Surprisingly, I was right in my guess. And then it just gets really stressful when the cousin comes, because he's so, it's on site with him, like seriously. But yeah, it's fine. I think my friend will have a lot more to get out of from this novel. Maybe I'll reread it after I like borrow or find the Gutenberg has like free files, I think. But yeah, so that was how We Have Always Lived in the Castle. It was a frenzied read, very fast skim almost read, and yeah, it was really hard to finish that book. For a 146 page book, it was really hard to get into it and finish it, which is kind of unfortunate. And then for the next 2, did I I talked about 3. Did I say I only read 4 books? So for the next ones that I read, well, one of them doesn't really have the cover out here, so I'll just put the picture like I did for Floral Folklore. The first and last arc I read was called Small Gods of Calamity by Sam Kyung-yu. What is your last name? Okay, Sam Kyung-yu. And that one is a novella that's coming out March 4th, and I know I've been saying I'm on a book buying ban, but for a novella I surprisingly had a lot more fun than I expected. I really enjoyed it, and so to support the author I will be ordering a physical copy. But yeah, so the premise itself, or at least very simple aspects of the story, is what really attracted me to request the arc. Thankfully I got accepted and I read it, and I really enjoyed it. So it's a novella, it's around 150 pages, and it's okay, so the parts that made me want to read it is that it's set in Seoul, Korea. Our main character is Korean. He's been adopted by a Japanese shaman? No, priest? Some spiritual focused family after his mom passed away in a pretty bad incident. And what I found really interesting was that not only is it set in Korea and our main character is Korean, but he is 28, so we have an older aged main character. He is a police detective. He's a detective on the police force. I think it was specifically the Chonggak police branch. And he's a asexual character. So I thought just that itself. But also I also love a good crime or mystery fiction novel and supernatural, and this was a combination of both. So I would say it's a bit more of like a supernatural crime mystery story. So basically our main character, he is ostracized in both the police force as well as like recently, as well as the spiritual community for like Korea, like Korean communities, Japanese communities, and I think some Chinese, like a small portion of the Chinese community. And the reason for that is because he and his adopted sister have both encountered something that nobody else in the community has before, and so they're not like, especially the brother, because especially the main character, because his adopted sister's from like a very well-renowned Japanese family temple, so she has more respect, she has more power, so they kind of looked more towards the main character. Plus him being on the police force also didn't really help. It gets a bit explained, but basically there's like, he claims that there's some sort of worm spirit that can't really be detected. As of now they have no way of stopping it, and it infects and spreads out rapidly, like, so it sounds super powerful, and as of now they have no way to permanently get rid of it. And because he's also the only one who can see ghosts and spirits and like that on the police force, he's kind of seen as crazy from both the police force and the spiritual community. So he's having a bit of a rough time, and now one of his cases in which there's been a string of what's that one, we'll just say confusing, but there's been a series of confusing deaths that have been ruled as suicides, but because of our main character's like skills and everything, he can see that it's the worm spirit. So once again his two things are being combined together, and he's forced to investigate both police wise but also more so on the spiritual side. And it gets like very intense as to what exactly is happening, and it really ties into his past, as he's kind of forced to work with somebody from his past that he does not want to, like, at all, but that person's the only one who can help him the most right now because his sister's not available. I told the story really poorly, but I thought, for me, I rated it a 5 out of 5 because I was like, I don't see why not. At first I was a little confusing as to whether there would be a bigger plot or if what was happening was the main antagonist, but I thought for a novella of 150 some pages, we got so much character in-depth, so much in-depth characters and backstories and development. I really liked the way the dynamics were written together and the potential it has in future stories perhaps, and my only gripe, or at least the only thing I personally was disappointed by, was the fact that it was a novella, because I think if it was a full fleshed out novel, it would have been so good, so good. And like just imagining the fact, like just how much more in-depth character development and just knowledge we would get, and then see how that would develop and potentially develop into perhaps a relationship, would have been so good. And also the world building kind of is not the world, but the information for the supernatural spiritual aspect was a little confusing, so I think some footnotes would have been more appreciated. But other than that, I thought it was really fun. Yeah, I just like the fact that it was set in Seoul, you know, like it's an area I'm familiar with. Like I know some of the areas the character went to, some of the other like just like other stuff like that, so I thought that was a really fun, neat trick. Maybe if I get the physical copy soon, I'll like look into an area and then go there and take a picture or something. But yeah, so it just had a culmination of aspects that I really personally enjoyed, and the author did such a good job in giving these characters so much depth within 150 pages, and just if it were longer it would have been so much better. Like the pacing wasn't that bad actually, but we could have gotten so much more, and I would have loved so much more. So I am actually really looking forward to the author's future works, and I hope they continue to do within this supernatural crime stories set in Korea. Honestly, it is a kind of a story that I feel inspired to try to write. It's kind of taking elements that I have been wanting to give a shot writing at, so it was really neat to read a book that has been published that did do that stuff. So yeah, but I highly recommend it. It's only 150 pages anyways, it's not that long, and if you've been feeling you want to read like a story set in Korea with a Korean main character and everything, check out Small Gods of Calamity by Yoon. For the final thing, before I talk about my February favorites, it is a web novel, and the web novel is called Kaleidoscope of Death. I read an unofficial translation, but I do know it has been licensed by Rosemay. The only thing is, when it was first revealed, it was like 7 months ago. I personally have not been able to find recent updates or news about it, so I really don't know what's gonna happen with it. But yeah, the covers that Rosemay did release at that time did look really cool, and that's what made me learn about it in the first place, I think. Now that I've read it, I think I'm going to see if it'll be possible to if it'll be possible to buy it, because it looks like ordering internationally will be hard, especially since I live in Korea and they don't seem to have an option for that yet. But the covers look cool, so maybe I'll like pick out the ones that have my favorite doors or arcs and whatnot. But yeah, so basically Kaleidoscope of Death is a horror infinite flow infinite slash unlimited flow novel. So I've tried to explain what infinite slash unlimited flow means at least 2 times. I don't know how to explain it very well, but basically what it is that we have reality, and there's basically a controlled world that random people get selected and forcefully sent to and are forced to participate. Sometimes there'll be like you have to like survive and succeed a certain amount of mini realities connected to that controlled system, or you have to collect a certain amount of points. And in Kaleidoscope of Death, you need to pass 12 doors. So the way, and there's always like slight variation. So for Kaleidoscope of Death, the slight variation is that all of the characters, they triggered the they triggered the qualification to be selected to participate in these doors things. There's no system that tells them what's going on. There's only like the system that keeps track, I think. And the trigger is that they are about to die. Obviously not everybody triggers it. I think you have to like really strongly believe you want to survive. But basically all of these people were on the verge of dying. The system picks them and they survive, but and it like makes them healthy enough to survive and etc. But in order to fully survive, to fully like heal, to fully become healthy again and basically no longer have to fight for your survival, you have to pass all 12 doors. And the difficulty gets harder and harder. And also if you're the first, so this is really good, buckle in, it's gonna be a little confusing. So basically this infinite flow, what they do is they have 12 doors, and each door contains a mini reality with its own little world, NPCs, and basically a mystery. In each door there is a key and a door to escape. You need to find the key in order, and also find the door in order to escape. If you find the key, if you are the first one to find the key and the first one to go through the door, either or, you get a hint for your next door. And you have to kind of go along with the missions in each world, but also try to figure out the story behind each door in order to be able to deduce where the key might be, and also to survive, obviously. So, and if you die in the door, once you return to reality, you will die in a freak accident. So that's basically how it goes. So that's basically how it works. And the higher number of door you get, so the harder it gets, the more time in between you have to like train. And so you go to like, you keep going to other doors, or you go to lower level doors, or you can even get hired to help people survive their door, etc, etc, or you can just rest. So that's basically kind of how this novel works. And then it follows our main character, what's his name again, who all of a sudden is taken to a door, and he meets this mysterious but also quite eccentric person who, and then in their first door, and then that's kind of just how the story goes. Also the male interest is very shameless, and the main character is too a little bit. He's definitely a little bit more shameless and like relaxed feeling in the beginning, but then he really mellows out and becomes a bit more solemn. Very confusing world building, very confusing summary, but 5 out of 5. It was so good. Okay, like I've read several infinite unlimited flow novels. This one is the only one in which I have not skipped or even skimmed a single sentence. Okay, like I was so engaged in the characters and the realities within each door and the eventual build up to like the end game of the story. I do think the world building behind the doors was a little lacking. It did get a little confusing and it felt like it wasn't really properly answered at times, but it was still so much fun, and we get some prominent side characters. There's emotional turmoil, it's like ups and downs. You get like things happen in ways you don't expect, unfortunately. Little spoiler alert, but it is very good. I do feel like, I know a lot of people said the main character and the author in their author notes was said like the main character is eventually going to be able to do things on their own without the help of the male interest, the male lead. I personally thought it took a bit longer than I was expecting, because even at the start of him getting good on his own, it did feel like he still really relied on the male lead. So it felt like surprisingly around his 6th door that it started like actually feeling like he was becoming his own, like becoming a strong contender on his own. So admittedly a bit longer than I expected, but yeah. And each story was pretty gruesome, was scary. The only ones that, okay, so really only one actually creeped me out, but the other ones I will say the descriptions are very good at freaking people out. So if you are looking for a novel that has several horror focused stories or arcs, I highly recommend Kaleidoscope of Death. And the characters are quite fun on like as well. Like there's nothing really lacking in the story, I felt. So yeah, so that is what I read in February, and buckle in for a longer video because I'm going to talk about my February favorites. So first off is matcha powder, specifically right now this brand. So I decided to get into matcha because I don't like the flavor of coffee, and caffeine for teas and stuff hits me a little too hard. So I wanted, and also I've been wanting to have like to try to make a little morning routine where I make a fun little drink, and I decided on matcha because one, is very pretty. It's like I do like latte drinks like with milk, and yeah, this has a bit of a routine that I was kind of wanting to have in the morning. I was a little apprehensive though because all the matchas I've always had were always very bitter on the tongue, and I don't know if maybe those places didn't have better quality powder or if they just brewed it too bitter. But also I think in Korea a bitter matcha is the preferred flavor because some of the powders I've looked up, or at least there's this apparently there's this really well known and well liked brand of matcha. A lot of the reviews were saying it's bitter and tasty, so I was like, oh okay, so maybe a bitter matcha is on the preference for Korea. But yeah, so I got the Marukyu Koyamayan Awarashi powder. This is really popular on TikTok right now. As you can see, it's like it's sold out, all their options. I managed to snag a 100-gram bag one. It took a lot longer than I expected considering that Korea is like it's like super close to Japan. But I got it and I've been actually really liking it. It has none of the bitterness, but it has a lot, and it's allowed me to focus on the flavor of matcha, which I surprisingly really like. It's what I've been sipping during my video. And yeah, I tried both oat milk and normal milk. I actually do like the way the matcha tastes stronger with oat milk, so I might also get a bit more into oat milk. Yeah. The next thing on my February favorites is Play's newest mini album. They came out with their second, they call this their second one, right? This is their second mini album and it's their best one yet. I am not kidding. Every single song on this album is like, there's no skips on this album. Admittedly, there is like one occasional skip because I'm not into, or really I can't really listen to ballady style songs, because especially because I listen to music more when I'm on commute and I get car sick really easily, even more so recently. And ballads are is a genre that can really worsen my motion sickness, and I'm just more into upbeat beats and songs, so occasionally I will skip from, but other than that there really are no skips in this album. And the choreography for their title track is so good. Their songs are so good. I highly recommend you check them out. I only have one mini album. A second one is coming on the way because it has a special photo card coming with it. And this time they have their mini albums. They have character focused ones, member focused ones. So I got one for my favorite member, which is Yoon, and yeah, it's a mini CD. I need to find something that'll let me play both CDs and mini CDs because I have CDs from previous albums. But please listen to their album. It's so good. Their music video is really their music video is so visually gorgeous. Like, it's so pretty, okay? And I would also highly recommend you watch their highlight medley of their album that they performed in their YouTube lives, their streams. They sing it all live and they sound so good, and you can see the choreography for some of them, and the full choreography for Wait for Love is so good, okay? Like, please go listen, check them out. They are a virtual K-pop boy group. And the next thing is, I had it for a while. I only started using it this month because I mentally prepared myself to, and it is the It Korea Girl brand stand oil, if you've heard of it. My sister got one for me as a congratulations on graduating, and I got the fluffy bag, the biggest size in black, and I really like it. It feels so nice and so fluffy, and it has so much space. It's like a metallic clasp, and it's like metallic, but it's still very firm and very strong. Yeah, it's just very pretty. It's just nice because it's called fluffy. It is fluffy. Like, as you can see, it's very padded, and it is nice to squish when you're just in the, like, out and about. It's a very nice crossbody length. It can also work as a shoulder bag, and I just really like it. It's very nice to take out. It's also very classy, not classy, but it's also very it's a very standard but very it's a standard basic-ish bag, but it's a trendy one. So it does look nice. It's quite flexible in how you dress when you wear it, and there's different colors and different sizes. I got the black and the biggest one because I do want to use it occasionally, potentially as a school bag, but also I like to carry a lot of things, so yeah. And also black, I think, just looks the most flexible with different outfits and colors, so black it is. And then for my last February favorite you can probably guess because I have not stopped talking about this. Well, I haven't uploaded those videos yet, but it is my e-reader. My new e-reader and the accessories. So I still have yet to upload how I found the first week and the pros and cons I found. I should probably talk about it. But basically, I got the Onyx Books page and I've been using it pretty well the past 2 weeks I got them. I have a pouch, silicone strap, clear case, and just some things in the background. I added this one recently, but yeah, I've been using it well. I've been using it mainly to read web novels. So that is also partially why I haven't read a lot this month, because those web novels are long, okay? They're all more than 50 pages. And as of now, because of the excitement of having gotten this one, I have not really read a physical book either. So there is also that. But yeah, so that is what I read in February, and these are my February favorites. Again, please, please, please go listen to Play's newest album. So good, 0 skips. It's amazing. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.